Hey everyone, my name is Christian and I'm a mix engineer. I started a series where I break down all my mixes, and today we've got Push by Connor Price and Nic D. Let's dive in. Okay, so for starters, this song has two different drum beats. The first one in the first half, and then the second one obviously in the second half here. I decided to put all of those beats under one drum group into one drum bus with one limiter here. The reason being is because I wanted to start off with an even playing field. I wanted to have the whole song be rooted on like a consistent bed. I felt like it was going to be really easy at the beginning of this to go into like song A and song B, and I didn't want that to happen. And so I started off mixing both drum grooves as like one song. And so here's the first groove here. And here's the second groove. Now you'll notice there's no like low end or kick in the second groove. That's because all of it comes from right here. It's just one 808. There's no like kick and 808 or kick and bass. It's just this 808 here, which is kind of nice because starting off with creating that consistent playing field, I didn't have any competing low end in between the first beat and the second beat. Now you could argue that having the 808 is a drum groove, but for me, like just my own mentality, having an 808, if it's tonal, it's a bass to me. That might just be like an old school way of thinking with like doing bands and stuff, but I couldn't get myself to make the 808 a kick. So now you can see I really didn't do anything to any of these. I just kind of some light volume control, and then everything else is just running through this limiter, which is really light just for the glue. And it's really simple. The treatment on all this stuff is super easy. As I move down here, there's this like perk and cell phone thing here that you can see. That thing. And the cell phone. Cool. Now let me add the basses because you can see here what's going on with a lot more low end. Now clearly you can see here that it's a lot more of a normal beat with the kick and 808. And the treatment I did on that is I just sidechained it to the kick. It's not by much. My rule of thumb is always like 3 to 6 and make it super quick because there's no need, unless it's like an EDM thing, to have the attack and release be like unless it's stylistic. For this, it's just kind of creating room for the low end, and so I wanted the kick to just shine for a minute and then have the bass come back in, so you can see here how much it's actually ducking. Not a whole lot, and very quick, you can see. On the second beat here, you can see that this 808 is all the low end. And then there's the second bass here. So the second bass here, I have this transient shaper. Now you'll see it's clipping, it's distorted. It was both a laziness choice because I didn't realize how much I was clipping it by, but also it's a stylistic thing because in the demo that Connor sent, whoever produced this had this bass pretty like grungy, pretty driven. And so in order to kind of match that hard hitting sound, I boosted this transient thing to like let it kick like an actual kick, and then a pretty heavy EQ here in the mids just to like so you can hear it like off a phone. So here's without it. You can see all this stuff here. Pretty different. And then as far as samples go, I didn't do anything on the melody. It's straightforward. For this one, and because, like with hip hop, because it's only like drums bass sample, it becomes pretty difficult to create a stereo image. And so, sometimes you have to work in order to let things feel wide, feel full. That's what happened here. So there's some light EQ here on this keys track. I drove it pretty good and then added the stereo thing to just kind of fill up the space. So I'll A/B this sample here for you. Now, soloed, it probably doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on, and there really isn't. But in context, with the drums and everything kind of going on, having that extra width is really helpful. And that's all the music. So let me dive into the vocals here. I won't dive into the normal treatment, kind of EQ talk that I normally do. I'll just kind of go through what was going on here. And this song's really unique because there was 3 kind of different vocals going on here. There's Connor's raw stuff, which is, normally what he sends. There was Nick's raw stuff right here. And then this was weird. This was a Nick treated vocal. I could have gone back and asked him to fix it, but I think there was something, I can't remember exactly how this played out, but I do know that a lot of this was a time crunch. We needed to like upload this quick. And so to go back to the producer and like ask him to bounce it raw and all this stuff was just like taking too much time. And this was a quick one. We just left it. And what I did was I matched it. And so here, let me show you. Here's Connor's like raw stuff here.
Roll up in a new one, sounding like a bazooka. See me and they froze, I'm calling the whip Medusa. Willy Wonka paint, they saltier than Veruca. Even with a new
Here's Nick's raw stuff.
Pull up in the old one, looking like I'm a no one. I don't gotta dress to impress, they already know us. Know a couple cold ones, take one to no one. Only ever.
And here's Nick's other vocal, which you can see here. I'll bypass everything, but it's totally treated.
I should go.
Hey, the kid is hopscotch and doing numbers on the road. Doing numbers at the shows, put your number in my phone.
And here's all the stuff on.
I should go.
Hey, the kid is hopscotch and doing numbers on the road. Doing numbers at the shows, put your number in my phone. I don't miss, I just reload.
So basically the vocal work was matching everything to each other, especially with like all the beat switches and stuff. The vocals just had to be super consistent. And so that was a lot of what my work was just matching the Nick treated, Nick raw, and Connor raw to each other. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about here too, which I thought was really interesting for this one, sometimes you get into these like weird digital artifact territory. Like if you're recording, I don't know, with like an overloaded computer or something's going on with your interface, like this is just what happens when you're working independently, working from your room. You kind of get these digital artifacts, right? And so for this one, and I think another song, it was like the Hawaii Mighty song. There was just like clips and stuff. And I kept listening to the mix and I thought maybe I was like driving it too hard, but it ended up just being like something going on in his vocal. You can see here, there was a lot of work that was kind of done here. So what I ended up doing is using RSD click. It helps those like click things. I go into Audio Suite and I do it. So like Audio Suite noise reduction, D-click. I'll highlight the click, just render it. Now there's a ton of different parameters you can do here to like change the click types and all that stuff. But the easiest way, at least for me, was just to like highlight, click, crossfade them. And so you can see I did it a bunch here. Like there's all kinds of work that was done here. I just kept hearing clicks everywhere. It was in this verse and in this verse. And, you know, sometimes those are just the things you need to do to clean up a vocal. It's really tedious, but man, it's so worth it. And then final mix bus stuff here, the low latency multi-maximizer that I love talking about. I need to stop calling it a limiter. It's kind of a limiter multi-band situation, but whatever. I do it on the instrumental bus and I do it on the acapella bus. That's because I like the glue that it provides before it actually hits to that final bus. There's not a whole lot going on. You can see how much threshold I've got on each one. It's nothing crazy. And then my final bus right here is EQ, Clipper, Pro L2. And so as far as like EQing on a mix, like I just love the mid side thing. Call me crazy. I know it's not what everybody does, but this is just something I do. Now on this one, sometimes I do mid stuff, but it's mainly side. I love a good high pass on the sides. I don't think you need those frequencies, and it kind of hones in, focusing on the like middle section of the low end. It's just it's something that I've tweaked around with and messed with, and that's personally what I love doing. And then for this one, I just boosted some of the low mids and the high frequencies. This stuff is helpful. It's kind of like faking imagery, where like if you're hearing this on headphones, or the hats are a little bit wider, the low mids are a little bit wider, which is just like a personal preference that I love when I'm listening to stuff on headphones. And then for volume, like for levels and stuff like that, here's my clipper. For me, it's when it comes to clipping, I just am messing around with the settings just to kind of get it to a point where it's clipping somewhere in this like 2 to 3 range. I did it a little harder here because the song needed it. And I've talked about this before. I'll talk about it again. But if you're using this particular plugin, watch out for the gold and alchemy buttons. This is how it starts when you put the instance of this plugin on. It's just 0, but it doesn't mean it's off. It means it's saturating your stuff. So I like to turn it off and then turn it on if I need to use it. But usually it's just providing like a little too much. So I really just use it for the clipping purposes. And then finally, Pro L2. I love transparent because I feel like it hits a little harder on the low end, especially for like hip hop stuff. Transparent, modern, those are kind of my go-to for like hip hop settings. I'll put the out at minus 0.3 just so it's not like digitally clipping too hard. That's kind of standard for me, just to bring it down from not actually at 0. Just mess with the gain, the oversampling, you know, attack, release. Like these are just things that I mess with as I'm kind of finalizing my mix. So with that said, that's a whole song. Let me play it for you.
Tell them how it is, I don't beat around the bush. Yeah, made it look easy, wasn't easy as it looks. Nah, hill got steep, we ain't need a little push. Back up, hard to believe you can see under the hood. Go ahead and look, yeah, let's go. Roll up in the
Before I forget, there's a fun fact here. So this beat switch up here, there was something about the demo that Connor and the producers wanted that it wasn't hitting the same as it was in the demo. I tried automating limiters and things like that. We were just having a hard time with it. And so I bounced this, put it into another session, got the demo, lined it up, and it basically looked like this, where I took the demo, like that first hit of that beat switch, and then switched it for the actual mix. There was something about the way it distorted that was like very specific to the way Connor wanted it. And so in a different session, I switched it out. And so what you hear on Spotify, what you hear on streaming is their demo for like 0.2 seconds, and then it goes back into my mix. But anyways, little fun fact. And all that said, that's it. If you're still around, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, comment below. But with that said, I'll see you next time.